Welcome to the show, and welcome to
Hey gamers, it's yet again Drazelfell, and welcome to my second new player tutorial video for the game of Malifaux. Last time I showed you how to do a very basic card flip just to generate a random number, and on this video I'll show you what to do with the card suits. I'm going to go ahead and bring up a stat card for one of the models, a character by the name of Ramos, and I'll zoom in here on one of his basic spells called Construct Spider. You can see that this spell has a CC or a casting cost of 16 plus 2 tomes. These symbols here represent the suit of tomes. So when I make my flip to attempt to cast Construct Spider, the total numerical value needs to be at least 16, and I need to have at least 2 tomes represented. Now I'll flip over to the front side of Ramos's card, and I will look at his casting ability score, or his CA score. His raw casting score that he starts off with is an 8 and a tome. So that means that whatever card I flip to that card flip, I will add, right off the top, I'll add the numerical value of 8 plus a tome. So, looking at what I need to achieve, if I need to achieve a 16 and 2 tomes, and I'm starting off with an 8 and 1 tome, my flip needs to, the numerical value of the card has to be at least an 8, and it needs to be represented by the suit of tomes. So I'll go ahead and show my deck of cards here, and I'll make my flip, and I get a 5 of hearts. So right off the top, 8 plus 5 is 13, so I failed to meet the numerical value of the requirement of casting this spell. I am using a basic deck of cards, not an official Malifaux Fate deck, so I'll bring up this nice little graphic here. I pulled it off the Malifaux website from a fellow community member named Xander, who made this nice graphic to show how the basic playing card suits translate into Malifaux suits. We can see that Hearts represents the Malifaux suit of Rams, so he didn't even get the second tome. He would have had to have a club to get that second tome. So, looking at this 5 of Hearts flip, his numerical value that he ended up with is 13, and instead of getting 2 tomes, he ended up with 1 tome and 1 ram. So he failed to cast Construct Spider. Now going back to look at the back side of his card again, he's got another spell here called Combat Mechanic. Looking at Combat Mechanic, it has a casting cost with a numerical value of 10, 1 tome, and 1 ram. Now unfortunately for Ramos, he did not try to cast Combat Mechanic. Had he tried to cast Combat Mechanic instead, his total of 13, 1 tome, and 1 ram would have been enough to successfully cast Combat Mechanic. So that's the way that the card suits come into play. Different combinations of suits as they show up on the cards can allow you to produce different results. Sometimes it's for the sake of casting spells. There's also another game mechanic called triggers, which can happen at any point in the game, sometimes during combat, sometimes during defense, sometimes during casting. Depending on the combination of suits that show up when you're flipping cards, you can end up getting different trigger results. So that's the end of that. Just so Ramos doesn't feel too bad about his failure, I'll go ahead and flip one more card. Here we have the 10 of clubs. Clubs represents the suit of tomes in Malifaux. So if he had flipped this card, he would have a total of 10 plus his casting ability of 8. He would have a numerical total of 18 and 2 tomes. So had he flipped this card, he would have been able to successfully cast Construct Spider. Again, not too difficult, pretty simple stuff, but as these videos progress, we'll start adding these concepts onto each other, and you'll see how a little bit of strategy comes into play when you're playing the game of Malifaux with cards and without dice. Thanks again for listening. Again, hope you learned a little bit of something, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Good night.